Hello everyone, welcome on board. Happy Sunday, hope everyone is having a good day. We're back in X-Plane now, and back in the rotate sim MD-80. We'll be doing a tutorial flight today, because last time we kind of struggled through that systems and everything, so we're just going to go through the provided tutorial. A few changes to it. We're flying from Dallas-Fort Worth down to Mexico City, and we're in the Retro Delta paint job. We'll be going through cockpit preparation, engine start, taxi, before takeoff, takeoff, after takeoff, climb, cruise, descent, approach, final approach, after landing, and shutdown of the aircraft. So we're going from right here in Dallas all the way down to Mexico City. We have an estimated flight time of 2 hours. So welcome back to the flight deck of the MD-80. We're going to start off with our first section of the cockpit preparation. So I'll just be reading straight from the provided tutorial. So cockpit preparation, go to the overhead panel and switch on the battery. Go up here, and here's the battery. I'm going to switch it on. The battery has a secure position to avoid its unintended switch off. To set this switch to the position, just drag it all the way down and you'll see the switch turns clockwise. Now that the battery is on, you'll see the annunciator panel and some other lights come on. You can cancel the master caution. To power up the airplane, we can use the ground power unit GPU or the APU. We're going to use the APU in this case. To turn on the APU, we need to turn on the start pump first. So here's the start pump, and turn that on. Now we can start the APU by turning APU start switch to start. So APU start switch. Release the switch and I'll go back to run position. See that the APU RPM and EGT rise. When the RPM reaches 95%, the APU power available annunciator will turn on. There's our APU power available. Now we can turn on the left and right APU buses. Left and right have both been turned on. We can now control the lighting in the cockpit. You'll see that the instruments light up. The APU load indicator will indicate a load ratio and instrument coolers will start. You can set the instrument lighting on the instrument panel. Lights, controls, these are located on the captain's instrument panel and the first officer's instrument panel. Here. Now, at least one of the right fuel boost pumps must be switched on and the start pump switched off. So these should be all off. And the right fuel boost pumps are right, so we'll just leave both of them, center and forward fuel pumps on. Start pump is off. To proceed with the cockpit preparation, we can follow different flows. Let's continue with the overhead and check it from up to down and left to right. In the electrical panel, we can now turn on the left and right engine generator switches, or do it after you start the engines. We're going to do it now. So right generator on, left generator is on. To right, there's a meter selector. We can check that all the readings are correct. So external power, that should be 0. We're not on any external power. Going to the right to the APU panel, we're going to turn on the air so we may later start giving some air conditioning to the cockpit. So over here and find the air. So turn that on. Going down to the bottom left corner, we arm the emergency lights and switch on the no smoking sign. In the ice protection panel, we will check the current flow to each position by turning the meter select and the heater selector. We will switch to pitot and stall heaters on by turning the knob to the rat probe position. The current indicator should read 0 amps. The rat probe heater is inhibited while underground, so this setup allows us to check that the gear sensors are correctly detecting that we are underground. We will switch to pitot and stall heats on by turning the knob to the capped position. We should also turn on the windshield anti-ice. Windshield anti-ice on. Moving to the right side of the overhead and going up to down, first we have the IRS panel. Since IRS alignment takes 5 minutes, we're going to start the alignment now. Switching to nav and nav. Now it's time to program the FMS. First, we adjust the brightness. The first page we are presented with is the ident page. There we can check the nav data cycle and the version and the version of the plane. Next we go to position init page by clicking the R6 function. First thing to do is set the reference airport, which in this case is Dallas Fort Worth. KDFW. We are prompted with a message saying set IRS position. To do so, we go to the IRS panel in the overhead and turn both knobs to nav position. We already did that. Now another message appears in the MCDU scratchpad saying enter IRS position. All we have to do is copy the coordinates by clicking the R2 key and the R4 key to paste them. We go R2 down to R4. That's set. The alignment will take around 5 minutes. When alignment is completed, the PFD and MD will no longer show the fail messages. Right here, both say fail. And we will show all the information. If IRS position is not entered or the airplane moves within a period of time, the alignment process will fail and the MCDU will notify the error. Also, the line annunciator at the IRS panel will start blinking. To proceed again, just turn the IRS knob to off and back to nav to reset the alignment process. Next, we have the overhead console lights, where we can adjust overhead floodlights. To the right, we have another panel where we can switch to cockpit floodlights. So here are the cockpit floodlights and thunderstorm lights. Moving down to the next panel, which is a miscellaneous panel, we're going to check the stall warning. By switching and holding the stall test switch and the overspeed warning, by switching and holding the max speed warning test. We may also switch on the logo light if needed, and finally switch on the yaw damper.
Stall. Stall.
That's the stall test, and here's a max speed warning test.
Overspeed. 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 Overspeed.
We'll turn on the logo light and the yaw damper, which is already on. Next, there's the air conditioning panel. We may now turn on the supply switches and adjust the cabin temperature to desired temperature. Be aware that the only manual temperature selection has been implemented at the time. So we'll go down to air conditioning. And that's set to auto, and desired temperature is set on auto. But in order to have pneumatic pressure in the system, we need to open the cross-feed valves that are located in the aft pedestal. Check the temperatures. We'll turn the temp selector knob to the cabin position. Next, we have the cabin pressure control panel. We may now enter the landing altitude. That will be, let's check what Mexico City is. Landing altitude at Mexico City is 7,316 feet. So in this case, we'll select 7.3 right here, and that's times 100. We still don't know the barometric pressure in Mexico City, so we'll leave it to the standard position. Finally, at the bottom right corner, we can test the annunciators and the digital displays by pushing the annunciator digital lights test. The overhead is done. We will now continue to the glare shield. Here we will set the flight director switch to on. Click the E per limit button. Set 250 knots in the speed Mach window. You could also set V2 plus 10, mainly for reference purposes. The reference bug will be set in the speed indicator. Set the runway heading. So in this case, runway heading, we're taking 17 right, climb heading 176. Runway heading here is 176 in Dallas. So runway heading is set. In the heading window, set the heading select. Headings. So heading select, there we go, we just had to figure it out. And the bank angle, as desired, we'll set to 15 degrees. So 15 degrees should be there. We also set the altimeter readout to the first altitude to which we are cleared by ATC and pull the knob by clicking it to arm. So we're not using any ATC, we'll just climb out to a cruise level, which will be 34,000 feet. Set the altitude readouts to first altitude 34,000 feet and pull the knob by clicking it to arm it. So there's flight level 340. Set the VHF nav radios as desired. So we're going to skip that part. Set the position strobe lights at the right hand side of the glare shield to on, so only the position lights will be on. The glare shield should look like this. So we'll come over here to the position and strobe on the first officer side and switch this to on. Going to the main panel from left to right, we begin on the left pilot side. First we will adjust the brightness of the primary flight display, PFD, and the navigation display, ND, by turning the correspondent knobs to in this panel. Then we set the altimeters to current barometric pressure. Next we're going to set barometric pressure in Dallas right now is 2984. Set in there and there. It should be over there. Next we're going to test the fire loops and the fire protection panel, which are in the center panel. Come over here. Here are our fire tests. By pressing loops A and B test buttons simultaneously, to do so you have to assign these commands or a key. So we're just going to skip that, but we're just simulating we did that test. Another way to test fire loops would be to go to Engine Fire Detection System panel, aft overhead panel, and test loop A, switch left engine loops, switch to A, and press loops A test button. To test loop B, switch to right engine loop, switch to B, and then press the loops B test button. We'll skip over the fire test as soon as it's passed. For your tests above, verify both fire and all warning sounds, and the following white messages should illuminate: master caution, master warning, left and right engine fire warning, fire detector loop, loop A, and loop B. Continuing to center panel, go to the thrust rating panel and select takeoff. Go here and select takeoff. Now in the flight mode annunciator, FMA, we will check that the following annunciators are visible: EPR, TO, altitude, flight level 340, and heading select, HDG, SEL. And the altitude hold should not be shown, so I just turned it off. Now we move to the right pilot side and go to the hydraulic pumps panel and turn all the pump switches to on. And turn all the switches to on. Now we should check that the hydraulic pressure is 3000 psi in the systems panel on the center panel. And there we go, 3000 pounds, or 3000 psi. Although the engine pumps are still not working since the engines are not running, the electrical auxiliary pump will provide hydraulic pressure, and the trans hydraulic pump will mechanically connect both hydraulic systems, so both will have the same pressure. Now done with the main panel for the moment, we can move on to the pedestal. Now we can go to the MCDU menu and click the aircraft management. To open the aircraft doors. Using that menu, we can also request the GPU and change the fuel units between pounds and kilograms. This is a moment to start boarding and the fuel loading. To do so, we go to the X-Planes aircraft weight and fuel menu. Let's see if I find it. Should be weight and balance. There we go. So we're taking a block fuel of 22,500 pounds. 22,500 pounds. And a payload weight of 28,300 pounds. That all checks out. So done and apply changes. So now we go over here. The zero fuel weight must now be entered in the fuel instrument. The gross weight readout will normally show the computer sensed fuel weight plus the zero fuel weight. Rotate the zero fuel weight knob and readout will temporarily show the zero fuel weight, allowing to set the current value. So our zero fuel weight is 108.6. There we go. As passengers are boarding and fuel is being loaded, we will start programming the FMS. First, go back to the position init by going to index, then position, and click on route. Or by clicking directly on the RTE button. All the spaces of the squares are mandatory. First, let's insert our destination airport, which is MMMX. That KO code for Mexico City. After inserting the destination airport, the activate option will appear. Now we should activate the route and then execute it. Once the route has been activated, the erase option will appear. By clicking erase, we will erase the last changes made to the flight plan. Then we'll insert the rest of the waypoints, beginning with our first waypoint. Let's go ahead and start putting in our waypoints. Our first fix is going to be SAT. From SAT, we're direct to LRD. From LRD, we're taking Juliet 22 to NLD. From LLD, we're taking Airway Uniform Juliet 11. then to MTY. From MTY, we're taking Uniform Juliet 81 to and our final point is Sasut. So those are all our waypoints. After entering all the waypoints and airways in the route, you go to the perf init page. Here we enter the fuel weight and the zero fuel weight. Fuel weight and burn schedules must be entered first in the form of XXX-N or XXN-A for normal or ultimate fuel burn schedules. This option determines the order in which the fuel tanks are emptied as the fuel is consumed. We may enter those right numbers in the scratch pad, or let the FMC do it automatically by clicking the corresponding function key. We continue filling the mandatory fields. The reserve field is going to be 3.0. Cost index 200. The cost index goes from 0 to 999. The higher the number, the more trip fuel consumption and speed. We'll just use a lower number. We'll just go with 90. Cruise altitude will be 340, 34,000 feet. Transition altitude will be 18,000 feet. You may also fill in a dashed fuel lines if we know them. Cruise winds, International Standard Atmosphere Deviation, ISA Dev, and outside air temperature at top of climb, TCOAT. So we'll fill in the cruise winds. Average cruise winds are 301 at 63 knots. ISA average deviation is going to be +7. Which gives us top of climb outside air temperature about -46 degrees Celsius. Next page is a takeoff page. There we'll input the outside air temperature, also known as SAT, which in our case is trying to find it. So it's about 16 degrees outside air temperature. The way I found it is coming over to the first officer's side, and it's under the SAT section. So continuing on, we may also set in the flex EPR field an assumed temperature for desired takeoff. TOFLX. Temperatures from 0 to 59 can be selected. The purpose of the takeoff flex is to reduce engine wear. The assumed temperature is set by turning the knob to the thrust rating panel TRP located in the center panel. When performing a derated takeoff, the automatic reverse thrust, which is located in the main center panel, above the TPR must be switched off, but due to the small length of runway at the tutorial airport, which we don't really worry about, Dallas has a pretty long airport, we're not going to use a takeoff flex mode. We're not going to use it either, just because I don't know the flex temperature we'd be using for this. But the takeoff mode that we are already set in the thrust rating panel TPR. Now we have to set our V-speeds. We can set them manually or let the FMS do the calculations. To do so, the FMS needs to know which flap setting we're going to use, so we would have to set the takeoff flaps. That'll be 15 degrees. So we'll set 15 degrees. So we'll just finish with this part. It wants us to put in a departure. So taking 17 110 right, using the Nellen 5 departure. To SAT. Route, execute, take off. And our V speeds are going to be V1 133, rotate 137, V2 145. Right to gross weight, there's an indication of the CG value in percent of the MAC. This value shows 0 for this particular weight distribution, but for us, it's showing us 6. We will input this number later on the takeoff condition computer in the pedestal to get the right long trim value for takeoff. This value will only be available if the weights in the perf page have been entered. Next page is departures. We'll depart runway 17 right. After selecting runway, we'll choose the SID, which we've already done. We will also go ahead and select arrival into Mexico City. We're arriving on the SAO 1 Alpha star and taking check something. We'll take the ILS 5. So we go over here. This is the best chart I found for Mexico City, so we'll take a transition at NATO SMO, which is right here. So that arrival's been programmed. So next we will have to check the route. To do so, we have to go to the Lex page. There are two ways to delete waypoints or discontinuities. 1. Clicking the delete key will appear on the scratch pad and clicking the waypoint discontinuity to delete. 2. Clicking the function key corresponding to waypoint discontinuity below the one to be deleted and clicking the function key corresponding to the waypoint. Bear in mind that discontinuities may be part of a procedure, like after vectors, so you do not always need to delete discontinuities. Just do it direct to the next waypoint before or after each discontinuity. So we'll cycle through our flight plan. And we have no discontinuities. The waypoints defined in a SID or STAR procedure may include speed or altitude restrictions that will be lost if the waypoint is deleted. Now let's check the route in the MD. To do so, we need to set the MD mode to the plan mode. Navigation display control panel is located below the lateral windows. Map, and there's plan mode. A range of 10 would be good to see the MD easily. You can hide the yoke by clicking on it. To step forward in route, we have to click the step function key on the FMS. come a little closer, and we'll step through. Bigger picture a little bit from there. We'll go here, 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 go back to 10, and on ILS to 5 ready. If we go on a missed approach, we'll brief that later, but we go here and hold that SLM. So there's our flight plan. So we step through it. The FMS will add the speed and altitude restrictions, but we can modify these. The syntax to enter the speed is XXX for airspeed / in knots or Mach. To enter the altitude in feet, use XXX plus A for above, B for below, or nothing at that altitude. You can also enter both speed and altitude. The restrictions for the cruise part of the route will be propagated from the data defined in the performance page. Finally, its plan is correct, we execute it, which we've already done. Just hit execute. Let's set the MD mode to map and the range ring to 10. So we go here to mode and go to map, and range ring we set to 10. Now that the FMS is programmed, we can continue with the pedestal. First, let's set the long trim using a takeoff condition computer. It should be right here. This is a takeoff condition computer. To do so, set the CG 6 in our case, as we have seen on the FMS takeoff page. So we select 6. Let me see if I'm doing this right. So CG would go to 6, as we saw in FMS here. And the takeoff flaps, in this case, we'll be using flap 15. So there's flaps 15. The computer will give you a certain value for long trim, which is, we'll go up to 9. We'll round up to 9 for this one right here, which is 9 in this case. And the long trim takeoff position indicator, the green arrow, will move to indicate the resulting long trim sending. Now we can set the long trim accordingly. As you move the trim, you'll hear an alarm. Get used to it, as it will sound every time the pilot or the autopilot moves the trim for a certain lapse. There we go, set at 9. Moving down to the aft pedestal, we can set the comm radios and the ADF frequency if needed, and check that TCAS is in standby mode. And now it's set in standby. Finally, open the pneumatic cross-feed valve, which would be pneumatic cross-feed valve would be right here. We have finished with the cockpit preparation. We may now do the departure briefing and read the before start checklist. So now we're in the engine start phase of the tutorial. We're going to brief the departure and how we're going to actually get to runway 17 right in Dallas. So in Dallas, we're over here terminal Delta, the D terminal. We're gonna taxi out onto, looks like, Foxtrot, and from there onto Yankee, and from Yankee we'll transition over here to 17 right. Here's an LN 5 departure. We'll climb heading of 176 to 1,120 feet, then direct treks, cross treks at above 5,000 and at or below 240 knots. Down track 153 to Delby, down track 205 to cross on K at above 10,000. Then on the depicted route to Nolan. There's Nolan. And from there we'll continue on to SAT, which is San Antonio. Now that the fuel loading and the boarding aircraft have been completed and it is time to close the doors, so the MCDU will go to the menu, aircraft management, and close them. So they're all closed. We never open them, which is fine. Since we are all well positioned in the taxiway, we don't need to push back. As part of their tutorial, we're going to push back the aircraft. There's a little wind out here in Dallas. Let's start with the right engine. To be more clear, let's put the steps in a checklist form. What I'm going to do, we're going to start old engines at the gate, and from there we're going to proceed and push back. The parking brake is on, anti-collision light is right here on the first officer's side. Turn on. Fuel tank pumps overhead on. Turn all those on. Ignition switch overhead on system A or B. We'll use system A. Air conditioning supply switches off. Start switch, right engine on. So here's the right engine, and flick that on. Check for entry rotation. Let's see what's going on. Got the fuel pumps on, AP is running, let's see if that helped. So it looks like our engine's not starting. Let's try to troubleshoot this a little bit. See what we can do. So AP is running. Wonder if we have to open both. Let's see if this helped. There we go. So we have to open both the pneumatic valves, not just one. That tutorial got that a little wrong. So check for entry rotation, which is right here. It's coming up. Check hydraulic pressure rise. Should be checked. When entry reaches 21%, move up the fuel lever to on, which is right here. So we'll wait for this to say 21 and we'll put fuel into the engine. There's 20. And 21. Observe fuel flow indication and EGT rise. EGT. Oil pressure. Monitor EGT until M2 is stabilized at or above 50%. So it's right now sitting about 61, 62. Close the start valve. Repeat the steps for the left engine. So we'll go here and switch that on, and we'll wait for a rise to 21%. And we'll put fuel in. Rise in EGT. Carrying on with the tutorial, it says the APU and APU left and right bus switches will remain. Switch that off and we'll close the guard. The APU and APU left and right bus switches will remain on if necessary. Engine ignition switch must be in off position during taxi. Finally, we can turn on the air conditioning supply switches to auto. Perform the after start checklist. Which I'm pulling up right now. So after start checklist says electrical system is checked, galley power ignition is on. Engine anti-ice fuel heat is off. Packs and air conditioning shut-off switch is auto. Hydraulics on and checked on high. Over here and switch to high. After start checklist is complete. So now we'll push back and start our taxi. Alright, so here our pushback. We'll start with the taxi phase. So now the engines are running, we're ready for taxi. Turn on the nose lights and release the parking brake. So we'll come over here, nose lights, turn those on, and release the parking brake. We'll hold off on that. While taxiing to runway 17 right, we'll perform the following procedures. Set the slats and flaps to take cup position, which in this case will be extended to flaps 15, which we can do right now. So flap 15 set. Right here. So flap 15 is set and indicating. Set the outer brakes to TO position, which is down here. Set to TO position. And arm the outer brake switch position. Arm the spoilers. Check the flight controls. So full left. Full right. Full up. full down, rudder full left, and full right. So flight controls are free and correct. Check the takeoff warning by advancing throttles. Check there are any takeoff warnings.
Brake.
So brakes on the one, which we're already aware of. And it says perform the taxi checklist. Taxi checklist. Flaps and slats are set. Takeoff flap 15. Auto brakes and spoilers are armed. Flight controls are checked. Takeoff data, bugs, and trim is checked and set. Takeoff warning is checked. Flight guidance and TRP is set. Takeoff briefing was completed. So we're going ahead and start our taxi, and I'll see you guys on 17 right. Alright, so here we are back here. Pretty long taxi to 17 right, so you skip that part. So before takeoff, approaching runway 17 right, we should check that everything is okay and that the aircraft is configured for takeoff. Check that there's no messages in the overhead annunciator panel. So it's just flight recorder on, we're not worried about that, and parking brake is on. Check that the autopilot is configured correctly, that speed, runway heading, initial altitude are set and alarmed. Check the flight mode annunciator. Check that takeoff mode is set in the thrust rating panel. Set right there and indicating. Check flaps 15. That the auto brake is set to TO, which we did, and it's still set. Spoilers are on, that the long trim is set for takeoff. That all checks out. And perform the before takeoff checklist. Before takeoff checklist, pull it up. Before takeoff, APU and pneumatic cross feeds are off, so we'll turn off the APU. Those seatbelts, that's skipping the tutorial, we'll turn those on, and we'll come down here and turn off the pneumatics. There we go. So APU air, pneumatic cross feeds are off and closed. Ignition is going to OVRD. Set here. So that's all selected. Annunciator panel brake temperature is checked. Brake temperature, where is that? So you can hear the APU shutting off. Brake temp is right here, which is good, it's not too hot. And TCAS is being set to TARA, which is right here. TARA is set. So before takeoff checklist has been completed, so let's go over to takeoff. So we're going to line up on 17 right, entering the runway, or before takeoff will be turn on the landing lights. So we'll go ahead and turn on our landing lights. Strobe lights will be set on, which they're on right now. Note that the strobe lights will not work until aircraft is airborne. When aligned and clear for takeoff, we'll perform the following takeoff procedures. Press that toga button on the throttles. There we go. Toga button on the throttles. Takeoff on tack off, which is right here. Annunciator will appear in the FMA, which should look like this. Advanced throttles approximately 1.4 EPR will be right here. This will say 1.4. And allow the engine stabilize. Switch auto throttles on. Monitor airspeed at rotate smoothly at approximately 3 degrees per second, maintain 8 degree pitch attitude through liftoff. After liftoff, continue rotation to max to maintain a minimum speed of V2 plus 10. V2 plus 10 is going to be 155, so we'll pitch for 155 knots indicated airspeed. When positive rate of climb is indicated, move the gear handle up and check the gear retracts, the doors close and lock, monitoring the gear enunciators. This is all going to go pretty quick, so we're just going to go over after takeoff. Above 1,000 feet, we'll engage nav mode and set climb mode on the thrust rating. So we'll go over here and click nav and click climb right there. Set a vertical speed of 2,000 feet per minute. So we'll pre-select that. And set vertical speed mode to on. At acceleration height above 1,000 feet, we'll adjust vertical speed to level off and accelerate to maintain the vertical profile of the flight plan. In the FMS, the FMS will take control of our vertical navigation. We may also set VNAV, which will adjust pitch to accelerate 250 knots below 10,000 feet. At this moment, the FMS will take control of our vertical navigation and of our speed. In the FMA, the following enunciators will show up: FMS, EPR, 250, nav track, VNAV, climb. If you haven't selected autopilot on already, this is the moment to do so. Unless we are through bad weather, we will turn on the ignition in the overhead panel. Also, if the center tank is empty, we'll turn center tank pumps off. We'll disarm the spoilers and check that the auto brake is off. Also, check pressurization overhead and enunciator panels. Finally, we'll perform the after takeoff checklist. So here we go. Let's go to Mexico City. Turn off the parking brake, and we'll go ahead and start the takeoff. We'll do a rolling takeoff. We'll just line up and accelerate to 1.4 Reaper and then turn on our auto throttle. Like our speed mode went to -0, so we'll just quickly put in 250 again. So we'll wind up on one side right, we'll just put in the speed really quick and start takeoff. So 250 is set. Advancing to 1.4, let's let the engine stabilize.